welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Capricorn, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of October 2023. I hope you are well. I'm using the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot for you today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is link number 1 in the description box. The second link in the description box is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on Circle. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost, so you can watch for your moon or your ascendant, whatever you like, and hang out with an extraordinary group of people. So if that sounds like your bag, you know what to do with that link. Right, let's have a look and see what's going on with you, Capricorn. Because I do recall last month's reading was a little bit heavy. I heard from quite a few Capricorns actually last month. Thanking me for acknowledging their heaviness, so yeah, it was good to know. Let me see what's going on with Capricorn. 3 cards for Capricorn, please. Thank you. Well, so we have that the 6 of Cups in reverse and the 2 of Swords for your past energy. Current energy for Capricorn, please. We have the King of Cups. Lovely. I like that. And what's coming towards Capricorn for October? We've got the 4 of Pentacles in reverse. So there are still some things up in the air, but with the Fool at the bottom of the deck, as we do have there, it does seem that whatever process it is that you've been undergoing, like I think the contingent part of it is the release. It seems like you're somewhat in a state at the moment of trying to work out what holds value and what does not, because the 4 of Pentacles, if we can just talk about that for a second, I mean, we'll go back over it in a minute, relates to that which we hold on to, and sometimes it's the things that we hold on to a little too hard that we don't want to let go for whatever reason, and we'll dig into that. But sometimes it can be about establishing what actually has so much value in your life that it is right and proper that you would spend the time attempting to keep as much of that in your life as possible. But it's finding a way to do it healthily, where we are not overly attached to something, but we've got a proper recognition of what it is that holds value. The fact that the cards come up sideways for me is something that I'm going to honour, because it means it's sort of in the it's in a tipping point, I think. And we have the Fool at the bottom of the deck, which is about trust and faith. It is also about freedom and liberation, and it speaks to the beginning of a new cycle, right? It also speaks to the infinite potential of zero. Like, with the Fool, all things are possible, and it could well speak to a return of hope and faith in that very principle right there, that all things are possible and we are not nearly as restricted as we might be, you know. So let's have a look. Why is the 6 of Cups in reverse? Oh, thank you. We've got the 6 of Pentacles. 2 of Swords. Got the Queen of Cups. And we have the 4 of Swords. Lovely. That's a really wonderful combination of cards, particularly with the heaviness of last month. Right, tell me about the King of Cups, please. We have 10 of Cups in reverse. We have the Justice card in reverse, and we have the 7 of Swords in reverse. Okay, tell me about the 4 of Pentacles, please. We have the Fool. Lovely. Oh, good Lord. I'm not going to take all of these because there's 4 cards here, but I'm going to show you. We have the Chariot, which talks about, you know, forward movement, gaining of momentum. It also speaks to balance and shadow work of sorts. We have the 9 of Wands, on one hand talking about boundaries and whatnot, but I think more so speaking to resilience for you in this case. We have the 3 of Swords and we have the 9 of Pentacles. And the 3 of Swords is an obvious state of heartbreak, but the 9 of Pentacles is about how you are managing your resources with all of these things taken into account. Now we're going to put all of those back in because that's far too many cards. It's just one more for the 4 of Pentacles in reverse. Thank you. We have the Moon in reverse. Right, this is great. I like this actually. Let's just pop the King of Pentacles down there. Because as an earth sign, pentacles are always going to be important. They do speak to your resources, because pentacles are for me something that you can invest. And the King of Pentacles would be in an active state of readiness for investment. Perhaps might be, actually being ready to reap what it is that you have sown, as we spoke about last month. Because that doesn't have to be a bad thing at all. I mean, we spoke about karma and it being the consequences of one's actions. That there is a neutrality to that. And, it is simply about perspective, perception, really, when it comes down to whether something is good or not. It would be taking into account your current situation and environment. Like how far ahead have you been thinking with what it is that you've been trying to do? Because the King of Pentacles says if your gaze has been directed toward your feet, which would not be a particularly Capricorn trait, it wouldn't be a particularly Capricornian thing to do, but if that has been the case, then there's a willingness to kind of lift your gaze and look a little further ahead and take your time in investing slowly in that which it seems to me is occurring to you actually has value. So let's stop talking around the cards and let's get straight into it. We have the Six of Cups in reverse and we have the Two of Swords here. And I do think, I feel like these two cards speak to somewhat of a state of bewilderment around things of the past. The Six of Cups indicates the past. That's what it talks about, and that can be it tends to be your more distant past rather than your recent past. So things that have happened in history to you. There might well have been events that had happened in your formative years, or things that have happened that have shaped your personality. Right? There's a whole heap of history that you can draw from here, Capricorn, is what I'm going to say. Because some of this stuff could be going back to childhood. A lot of things with most people go back to childhood. But the Two of Swords is those things that we have not seen, right? And it's those things that we have not seen because we could not see them. In so much as somewhere along the line, our subconscious has created a dividing wall between what happened and our response to it. And often that's because it's been so upsetting and there's been something so challenging about it that our nervous system has decided that to accept that thing would be something akin to death. And so it walls it off so that we can't see it. And then no matter how hard we try, we cannot see the thing, right? The fact is, though, I'm wondering if for some of you the disconnect has been between not necessarily something that had happened in the past and where you are now. Well, yeah, that is where the disconnect is, because it's almost like you've been unable to see that there's been something that's occurred in the past that has led to your inability to be able to see what the problem is in the present. With the Six of Cups is reversed, it's a not going back kind of energy. Not going back because we can't go back, because we can't see the connection between what happened and where we are now. That's how I'm reading these two cards. But with the supporting cards being the Six of Pentacles, the Queen of Cups, and the Four of Swords, somewhere it seems like that connection has been made. The Six of Pentacles can speak to balance, or a need for balance. It can speak to a need for us to think a little more charitably and compassionately about ourselves and things we have experienced, but also the roles that other people have played within that story. It seems like it's dawning upon you that there may be a connection between things that have happened in the past and what is going on now. It still doesn't mean that you see it as clearly as you could do, because that Two of Swords is very much in operation, right? There are still things that are obscured. But the Queen of Cups and the Four of Swords both have this energy of acceptance and recovery about them. You know, the Queen of Cups, as all the queens do, I feel puts a lot of her energy into understanding whatever suit she represents. So with the Queen of Cups being here, it's about understanding the motivation of your emotions. That would be particularly important if we're trying to isolate what it is that we do not see, you know, the connections that we haven't made. Like I said, she speaks to acceptance and compassion and forgiveness and all these kind of things too. It's where we accept where before we have been fighting. Now, if it's been a bit of your subconscious that has been fighting, you know, the connection that is there in terms of things that have happened in the past and what is going on right now, it strides forwards in being able to identify and recover from whatever it is that might show up as a result of the connections that you've made. The thing is, it's really, really important that this process happen. And it's really, really important for you personally, quite separate from whatever situation you find yourself in right now. It's really quite important that this connection is made and that you find a way to balance it within yourself. Because the Four of Swords, like I said, it speaks to healing, as the Queen of Cups does. But it's a kind of mental healing. You know, the Three of Swords, which we did see in the cards that fell out before, is pain. It's the one card that you don't have to explain to people in the tarot what it means, because everybody has an understanding of the visceral image of that and how it corresponds to a feeling that we have inside of us. But I always used to struggle with the Three of Swords because it is such an emotional card, and yet then why is it depicted by the Three of Swords? The swords being air, information, you know, logic, reason, rationality, and it's the collision, I think, of information, insight, those sorts of things, with our emotional space. Like when the head and the heart connect and you realize something that you did not see before, it changes everything. It spears the heart. There's an understanding that things will never be the same again. And I think sometimes when we see the Three of Swords, a reaction that we can have to the energies that represents is assuming that our emotions have led us astray in some sort of way. Like, it wouldn't be an unusual thing to in this situation, I'm sure we've all had this play out for us, where we're like, why was I so stupid? Why did I not see that? I can think of half a dozen examples off the top of my head, but it's like, it's that collision of the information with the emotions. Now, the step on from that is the Four of Swords. It's how do we stabilize all of this stuff now? How do we come to a state of peace with it? How do we allow ourselves to mentally recuperate from what has happened in the Three of Swords? These are cards of contemplation. The Four of Swords is a card of contemplation. The Queen of Cups is almost like an emotional contemplation, while we're rolling it around and trying to make sense of it, trying to find the balance for ourselves within it. And it's all coming underneath this inability to draw the connections that you needed to draw. Now, it's no narrative on your logical abilities. It's more of a signpost to the fact that you, just like the rest of us Capricorn, have emotions, and when things get hard, your subconscious does what it needs to do so that you can continue to function. There's a positive intent at the bottom of it, but there can be an incredibly destructive expression of that if we are not careful. And I wonder if that's what the connection is that's being drawn here between the two things, right? You had not correlated one situation or experience from the past with what is going on here right now, but it's like it's slow and it's dawning and it's happening. So when or it has happened at least. When we move into your current energy here, we have the Ten of Cups in reverse, we have the Justice card in reverse, and we have the Seven of Swords in reverse. And they're all coming out underneath the King of Cups. The King of Cups is Scorpio energy. And it's about the active expression of water energy, right? It's the active expression of emotions. It's about allowing the emotions to flow within us, and acting from a place that is taking that into account. I think the thing that the kings do much better than the knights, because there is a sense that the knight will eventually turn into the king, is to create a wider context, right? Obviously, when we're talking about the kings, we have age and experience, we have wisdom on the side of the kings, because they have spent the time being knights. They have been there, out there doing whatever knights do, getting things wrong, making mistakes. The King of Cups is about accepting that mistakes have been made, and treating ourselves not as monumental fuck-ups, but as humans with flaws who are at times damaged emotionally by the experiences that we have. And sometimes those are caused by us, and other times they are caused by other people. But it's almost like that steadiness of being able to approach both is really, really important here with the King of Cups. And that's the energy that is going on here at the moment. Now, in terms of the Ten of Cups in reverse, for some of you, there might be a whole narrative of the past. And we're back to your childhood again, where there is a recognition that your childhood was actually anything other than perfection. It was anything other than what we see here in the Ten of Cups, and that might have had the effect of causing you to wall up certain parts of yourself not to come out, with the hope that they wouldn't come out, only to realise that they've been leaking out sideways for quite a long time. Maybe this is the thing that you have not seen with the Two of Swords. It's the thing that you had not correlated with what is going on now. And, if that was the case, then we could certainly understand that there would be a feeling of injustice about what has happened to you. But I think with the Seven of Swords in reverse, it's very important to understand that you aren't lying to yourself about it anymore, because whatever the function of the subconscious in trying to protect the ego and all that kind of thing, which is essentially what it's doing, because it's trying to keep us alive, and the ego is necessary so that we actually have a will to live, and we have a will to defend ourselves, and all that sort of thing. At the end of the day, it is a deceptive energy that stops us from seeing the truth. The fact that the Seven of Swords has come out in reverse now means that it's almost like the scales are falling from your eyes. You are starting to see where things have gone wrong. Now, if it's not directly attributable to your childhood, and I think for most of you that is the case, then it's a more recent situation. Well, actually, we can see it a couple of ways. It could be a more recent situation where you were in a position of being able to provide a Ten of Cups, and you did not. In fact, it was imbalanced and unjust, perhaps the way that you behaved, and you could see that about that there. And that would, the effect of that would be on other people. It's come from a place of damage within yourself, and you almost paid it forward. So you can see how that would be happening. But in your very current energy right now, it could be something that you thought contained the possibility of some sort of emotional redemption for you that has broken down. As well as being the fulfillment of the potential of the Ace of Cups, that being the Ten of Cups. The Ten of Cups also represents an end, because it's a 10, right? It's a state of culmination. But we don't get to stay there, because everything runs in cycles. So although as much as we would love to, we can't all just occupy the Ten of Cups and the Ten of Pentacles energy for the rest of our days. Once we've achieved it, that's it. It stays where it is. There's something almost There's something almost naive and deceptive about the state of the Ten of Cups in and of itself, because it's our attachment to it. And if you've emotionally invested into something in terms of it being your emotional redemption, but somewhere along the lines it didn't play out the way that you wanted it to, we could see this being a breakdown of the family unit. You know, divorce and whatnot. Justice often represents contracts and agreements and things that we have made with people, and talk about, you know, it speaks specifically to, you know, legal agreements and whatnot. Marriage would be one of those. We could see this being a breakdown of that. And maybe for some of you, if this is happening in the here and now, then it's not lying to yourself anymore about the fact that this does seem to be breaking down. I think we all do that. You know, we sit like the dog from the meme with a cup of coffee in its hand with the room on fire, and it's just going, this is fine, this is fine. We've all got examples of situations where we've sat in that, just hoping that if we ignore it for long enough, it'll sort itself out. I mean, I just don't think that that's happening for you. There's something that has broken down or is breaking down now. And maybe there has been a degree of naivete that's been employed by you. Or maybe you've just been very blinkered about it. But reality seems to be coming so close now that you can't shield yourself from it in the way that you could before. And there are going to be insights that you're having about yourself and your behaviour and the behaviour of others. I mean, maybe it has been easy to blame somebody else for something because what they've done has not been good. But I would remind you, Capricorn, that we do judge other people by their behaviours and ourselves by our intentions. And those come, you know, the value judgments that we make of those two things can come out very, very differently. I spent a bit of time a while ago kind of flipping around in my head old situations and looking at my behaviour versus other people's intentions, and it was incredibly illuminating, because there were, you know, what we do ultimately again and again and again is ignore our own poor behaviour in the way that it comes across, because we know at the heart of things we had a good intent, but the degree to which that's actually played out so it could be perceived by other people is a question in and of itself. You know, and in defending our behaviour, we can go, but, you know, that's not what I was trying to do. I was trying to do the right thing. And they get defensive. And it causes situations to escalate. Because at the heart of it, you're like, but you didn't. You just didn't, though. And it's very easy to come to a place where we feel victimised by somebody else, when instead, you know, if we take a broader look at this and a more compassionate and accepting look at this, we're all just bouncing off each other's projections all the time. You know, the projection of what we want to be versus what we actually are, you know, our intentions versus our behaviours. And the thing that we're most afraid of is taking responsibility for the things that we have done. We tend to hide behind our intentions instead. And yet, somewhat counterintuitively, it is the thing that releases us from what feels like the claustrophobic prison of, why is everybody else so weird? Why is it I try and do the right thing and everything goes wrong? I think the King of Pentacles is quite interesting here, because like I said, if you've been looking at your feet, you've been trying to work out what's going on here. The King of Pentacles, generally speaking, is quite a forward-facing card. It's about investment in the future. It's about building something in the future and overseeing that. But sometimes the King of Pentacles, as part of his, archetypal job, if you will, is going and inspecting the foundations making sure that before he takes any more further steps forwards, that what he's building on is sound and good to support what comes next. And I do wonder if what we're seeing here coming towards you in October is the inspection of the foundations. Because the energy of any card numbered 4 wants to be stable, it wants to be secure. It is by definition a foundational level card, right? So from the 4, and if you think about the 4 in terms of a shape, you have a square, right? It's a good shape to build things that are going to be strong. But it's not showing up in the upright, it's showing up sideways, which means that it's not in a position to be built on at this point. Now, whether that's because we're holding on to things from the past, and possibly if you haven't made connections between the past and your present, you might not notice the extent to which you are holding on to something. Or it might be that you have failed to see the value of something in your present. Either way, whichever way these situations are playing out for you, and this is a general reading, you must just take what resonates and leave the rest. Don't give up your autonomy to a reader, but hopefully there's a point of resonance in here for you somewhere. The work is happening with you, as it always should do, but it's specifically happening with you this month. It isn't about what other people have done or what other people have said, or even the way that other people have behaved. It's very much about what is going on within you and how you are ripe for change, Capricorn. We've got the Fool showing up twice, which we understand, as I said before, as to be faith and trust and a deeply held belief that everything is going to be okay, which is going to be something that challenges your nervous system and your subconscious, that's saying everything is not okay, everything is fucked. And it's like, well, actually the Fool says there's freedom here, there's liberation here. If you can choose, if you can sufficiently understand the level of lesson that is being taught to you here, and understand that this is not a punishment, because things are going to be revealed this month and they are going to be highly illuminating for you, Capricorn. But like I said, I don't feel like the big insights are to do with other people or to do with situations that you find yourself in. They are extremely internal. I feel like I want to pull another card. Let's get this deck out here. Tell me about the Fool and the Moon. Seven of Cups. Oh, that makes sense. Eight of Cups. Page of Pentacles. The Moon is appearing here as well, right? And wherever the Moon is, we're talking about the subconscious for sure. But we're talking about those things that are hidden, those things that have been obfuscated and obscured from you by your subconscious. You know, there's a dreamlike quality to anything that the Moon covers, and it can be illusory. It can be really confusing. It's got a similar sort of energy to the Seven of Cups here. It's very much the energy of what the fuck? What does that even mean? Like what's going on? You know, while our minds are desperately racing, trying to make sense of what it is that we are seeing. It could be that your dreams are kicking up a notch. Now, that's really interesting. We have the Tower sitting directly behind the Moon. Now, if the Moon is the things that are hidden, the things that are obfuscated, what's being hidden is a Tower moment here from you, Capricorn, which means that this here, this Moon in reverse, is implying the Tower hitting in the best possible way. Because remember, we have freedom and liberation being indicated by the Fool. We have the capacity, the ability to be able to move on from something that has been a perpetual source of confusion for us. Right? So we've got everything that we talk about there with the Seven of Cups, but here in the Eight, we have got a recognition that these cups that were so confusing to us in the 7 now actually don't hold what it is that they were designed to hold. They don't have the utility that we thought they did. So what we've got is you emotionally moving on from something because I think you understand it. You're beginning to see it in a way that you didn't before. You know, when we talk about the 8 of Cups, it's interesting how that can play out sometimes, because the received wisdom of it is that we're leaving behind a certain set of emotions that no longer serve us, right? So we've got a moving on from the 7. But also within the 8, we've got this idea that we are moving toward the 9. And the 9 is, for me, the good management of your emotions. But it's also your hopes and your dreams and your goals. It's sometimes called the wish card, right? So we've got a transition from the confusion in the 7 and the implication that that is what has been holding us back, to this state of movement here in the 8. And whether it's moving away from or moving toward, or whether it's doing both simultaneously, there's a very necessary tower moment that is involved within it, that once the tower is hit, gives you the opportunity to start investing differently. Like, this is an initiatory point here. And if the aim is both the King of Pentacles and the Fool, it's like having inspected the foundations, you've seen somewhere where they aren't quite as strong as you thought they were. And the foundations are you, Capricorn. That's what we're dealing with here, right? There's something here that isn't working quite the way that it should. And there is, within that, there's a different kind of redemption than the one that you've been looking for. Because I think up until this point, the redemption that you were looking for was everything just settling down and you being able to go back to focusing on what it is that you have hitherto considered to be important. But the universe is saying, actually, you know, your emotional growth, your emotional maturation is the thing that requires your attention. The redemption is highly personal because it's a much gentler way of living within your skin than you have experienced up until this point. And having investigated the foundations and seen where, you know, none of these glasses here are actually doing the job that they were designed for. None of the emotions or coping mechanisms, you know, the strategies that your subconscious has employed to try and keep your ego safe are actually doing that. Instead, what they've been doing is limiting it. And the Fool's like, it's time to break free of all of this. It's time to start again, start anew, and experience life on a different level. And I do think that this is why this card has come out sideways, because it's not yet capable of being foundational. It's in a transition stage in and of itself. So the work that you do in October is actually about preparing the emotional ground, getting rid of what doesn't need to be there anymore, by way of understanding, compassion, forgiveness, both for other people, but mostly for yourself, Capricorn, because this is something that's been missing. It's almost like you can't fix the injustices of the past, whether they were by your hand or somebody else's, by continuing to hold on to the emotions, the coping emotions that you started working with at that time. It's like everything then is at the level of cope. Everything is at the level of running away from something. Whereas if you can take a moment to stand still, inspect your foundations, clear out what doesn't need to be there, and let it go, not only is there the capacity to start afresh, which it seems to me is really important to you, but start afresh on a level that you probably haven't experienced in your life before. Because like I said, things are being revealed this month, and I do feel things like it's things about you are being revealed to you. Now, the extent to which that affects people outside of you, I think is not going to be a concern for you this month. It's more like how you make sense of what it is that you are discovering. And I don't feel like you rolling around and being maudlin about it. It's more like, oh, right, okay. And this process of working out where the value actually is. Because in some ways I feel like there's been a value that you've perceived in punishing yourself, although you maybe not have recognized it as that. Maybe there's a value in punishing other people, and there's something quite empty about that too. The true rebirth energy for you, the ability that gives you to the energy that gives you the ability to start again, is contained within the release rather than the grasp. And that will have the effect of changing the way that you're showing up once you've made sense of it. But like I said, I don't think that there's anything about this process that is actually designed to be for the consumption of other people. This is about getting your head straight, your priorities straight, your values straight, in light of the information that is being revealed to you this month. And like I said, it's internal emotions, all emotions are internal insights. And likely you might find yourself changing direction really quite dramatically this month. Because as everything is changing, as the foundations are getting a tidy up, what it is that you're planning for the future, and indeed supporting and being supported in bringing about, suddenly become much closer to your grasp than they have been for a while. I think you've been very frustrated by the lack of movement here for a long time, and you haven't realised that it was, to some extent, you standing in your own way. Because the tower's been hidden. The tower's going to pull something down in its revelatory state. As the moon is here, it's going to step away from obscuring the tower and show you exactly what that is. It's a gift, actually. Capricorn is what it is. All right, I'm going to go and do the extended now. So if you would like to join me over at Vimeo or Circle, you're very, very welcome to do so. Like I said, the links are in the description box. If not, I think that this holding pattern that you've been in, because I do sense a lot of frustration around the way things are playing out for you, Capricorn. The biggest issue here is about how you feel. It's not about how you think, which is really, really interesting. I was just musing on the fact that we didn't see the Eight of Swords here anywhere. But I feel like it's because the obstruction is in the feelings, it's not in the thinking. Thinking probably will happen as a corollary of the particular emotions that you're having, but you clear up your emotions and your mind's going to follow. And I think you're going to see a huge change of priorities this month. And likely you won't see that coming. It's just going to hit you like a train, I think. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.